foster daughter that I just got. She was choking, and I tried to do the Heimlich on her. She's breathing, but it's not good. Please hurry.
The powerful voice you heard belongs to Jennifer Rosenbaum, pleading for help to save her adopted 2-year-old daughter. This woman, who moved heaven and earth to adopt, would later reveal severe flaws within the child and family protection system, which placed vulnerable children in dangerous hands. Join us as we uncover the grim and disturbing story that shocked Georgia. Layla Marie Daniel was born on July 18, 2013 in Georgia to Tessa Clenning and Anthony Daniel. 2 years earlier, Tessa had another daughter, Millie Place. Both parents faced complex and troubled pasts, growing up in difficult environments that included involvement in the child welfare system. Their troubled backgrounds, coupled with ongoing substance and alcohol abuse, created an unstable and unsafe home for their daughters. In response to the turbulent conditions in the Daniel household, Georgia's Division of Child and Family Services, or DFCS, made regular home visits to assess the girls' welfare. Unfortunately, the reports were consistently negative. For instance, one report highlighted domestic violence, and another noted that one of the girls had left home without her mother noticing. As early as 1 year old, Layla's home life was disrupted by her mother's addiction struggles, which eventually led to Tessa being hospitalized. As a result, Millie was placed with her grandmother, Gina Banks, while Layla stayed with a family friend, Cynthia Tate. Under Cynthia's care, Layla thrived as a healthy and happy child, visiting Tessa on special occasions. However, Tessa's situation deteriorated, and in January 2015, she was arrested for conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine, leaving both girls temporarily with Gina and Cynthia. When Tessa was released, she moved in with Cynthia, but after failing a court-ordered drug test, authorities made the decision to place Millie and Layla into foster care, supervised by Loretta Brown. The aim was to provide a more stable environment for the girls. At this time, Layla was 21 months old and Millie was 4. They moved through several foster homes, receiving affection and care, but the frequent transitions hindered their stability. Despite her struggles, Tessa wanted her daughters back and remained involved in the adoption process, hoping to regain custody after achieving rehabilitation. In May 2015, the girls were placed with Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum. Though not officially designated as foster parents, the Rosenbaums expressed interest in providing temporary care for the girls. Now let's learn more about Jennifer Rosenbaum. At the time, she was 27 and shared a troubled past similar to Tessa's. Jennifer grew up in a violent and unstable environment, often facing physical abuse. Her mother had addiction issues, and they frequently lived on the streets. By the age of 9, Jennifer entered the child welfare system, where she faced numerous challenges and exhibited difficulty managing her anger, leading to frequent behavioral problems. As Jennifer became involved in the lives of Layla and Millie, her own troubled history raised concerns about her ability to provide a safe environment for the girls. Yet she was determined to care for them and was actively involved in their lives, wanting to create a family despite her past. Jennifer entered the child welfare system at 9, grappling with anger management issues that led to numerous complaints about her behavior. During her time in various shelters, she unwittingly crossed paths with individuals who would later impact her life in significant ways. Despite these challenges, Jennifer was determined to redirect her life. She graduated high school, enlisted in the military, and later pursued a law degree, reflecting her newfound passion for justice. As she evolved, Jennifer crafted a public persona of a confident, respected advocate for her community. She gained a considerable following and made television appearances, even landing an internship at the district attorney's office. In 2009, she married Joseph Rosenbaum, someone she had known since their time in the foster care system. Joseph worked as a corrections officer, and their relationship was described as complementary, with Jennifer taking on a dominant role while Joseph remained more passive. Joseph's battle with cystic fibrosis presented unique challenges for the couple. This situation allowed Jennifer to cultivate a narrative on social media, portraying them as resilient figures who had overcome adversity. However, cystic fibrosis also meant that Joseph was likely sterile, complicating their aspirations of starting a family. Unfazed, Jennifer expressed an unwavering determination to become a mother, insisting she would achieve this goal at any cost. Their first attempt to become adoptive parents was met with rejection due to Jennifer's past history of physical abuse while in the child welfare system. Rather than deter her, this setback fueled her determination. She submitted a second application under her married name to conceal her history, believing it would help her avoid scrutiny. Authorities required her to attend training sessions for prospective adoptive parents, during which a thorough background check would be conducted. Jennifer's egocentric attitude led her to believe that no one had the right to judge her. She insisted that any child would be lucky to have her as an adoptive mother. When she became frustrated by the investigation process, she lost her temper during a phone call with a child services worker, threatening him and insisting that he didn't understand who he was dealing with. This incident resulted in the immediate denial of her application. In April 2015, while working in the courtroom, Jennifer recognized Tessa's grandmother, a woman who had provided her with a temporary home in her childhood. Seizing this opportunity, Jennifer accessed Tessa's file and learned about the legal struggles surrounding Layla and Millie, as well as Tessa's efforts to find a home for her daughters. Armed with this information, Jennifer crafted a detailed plan to adopt the girls. Her first step was to reconnect with Tessa through social media, leveraging their shared past to rebuild their relationship. Once they re-established contact, Jennifer offered to adopt Tessa's daughters, promising a loving home and expressing deep empathy to gain Tessa's trust. At that point, Jennifer appeared to be thriving. She was in her third year of law school, preparing to apply for a position on the county commission, and enjoying a seemingly perfect marriage and stable financial situation. However, beneath the surface, her motivations and the truth of her past remained troubling. As she pursued her goal of adoption, the complexities of her character began to surface. Despite her polished public persona, Jennifer's actions were increasingly concerning, setting the stage for a tragic outcome for Layla and Millie. Tessa enjoyed a favourable social position and economic stability, along with a perfect marriage. This seemingly ideal life filled her with gratitude and happiness, as she believed it created a world of opportunities for her two daughters. Convinced that her home could offer the nurturing environment they needed, Tessa decided to pursue adoption for Layla and Millie. She reached out to the social worker managing their case to express her desire for the girls to meet the Rosenbaum couple, whom she believed could provide a good home. Layla, only 2 years old and still non-verbal, along with her 4-year-old sister Millie, began visiting the Rosenbaums. Millie took on the protective role for her younger sister during these visits. The girls were temporarily placed in a home overseen by Patricia Lambert, a diligent and responsible caregiver. Patricia kept meticulous notes about the sisters, ensuring that their needs were met. However, Patricia became concerned when she noticed that after visiting the Rosenbaums, Layla and Millie returned with unexplained burns and bruises. Alarmed, she reported these findings to the Social Services Office, but her concerns were met with indifference. Patricia was not the type to give up easily, so she took the girls directly to social services on 2 occasions for medical evaluations due to their injuries. She supported her claims with photographs documenting the girls' wounds, but still, Her alerts did not prompt a necessary investigation. Jennifer, the social worker assigned to the case, manipulated the narrative. She misled her superiors, suggesting that the girls' injuries were due to visits with their biological family. This claim was easily disproven by reviewing Patricia's detailed notes, yet the social services team chose to believe Jennifer. On July 24, 2015, a judge ordered that Layla and Millie be placed with Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum, ignoring the fact that the couple had not met the requirements or completed the necessary paperwork to adopt the girls. After the girls arrived at the Rosenbaums' home, Jennifer emailed Tessa claiming that social services had mandated a 30-day adjustment period during which the girls could not have any contact with her. This assertion was entirely false. During this time, Jennifer plotted ways to maintain control over Layla and Millie, inventing new excuses to prevent even minimal contact with their biological mother. Complicating matters further, Tessa became pregnant again, which Jennifer viewed as an opportunity to gain custody of the new baby. Despite the tension surrounding the situation, Tessa reached out to Jennifer for updates and requested photos of her daughters. Jennifer had approximately 2,000 pictures of Millie, but only sent Tessa the oldest images. Under pressure from Tessa to see Layla, Jennifer eventually sent a photo that revealed a bruise around Layla's eye. When Tessa inquired about it, Jennifer claimed it was an accident that happened at a daycare, which raised questions since Layla had not been enrolled in any nursery or daycare program. Layla and Millie's case was assigned to a social worker responsible for monthly home visits. This worker was tasked with documenting the girls' physical and emotional well-being through individual conversations and thorough physical examinations. However, none of her reports ever indicated any irregularities in the girls' conditions. In August 2015, a neighbour noticed bruises on Layla's face and approached Jennifer for an explanation. Jennifer claimed Layla had fallen down the stairs and injured herself. The neighbour, who was a nurse, was not convinced by this explanation. Concerned for Layla's well-being, she insisted that Jennifer take the girl to a children's hospital for evaluation. After several hours passed without any sign that Jennifer had taken action, the neighbour returned to confront her. She reiterated the necessity for Layla to see a specialist, stressing that head injuries could have serious consequences. Jennifer promised to take Layla to the doctor the next day, but her words did little to assuage the neighbour's concerns. The following months saw further troubling incidents involving Layla. In October, she sustained a leg injury and was rushed to a medical facility where doctors discovered a fracture. Jennifer claimed Layla had fallen while at her grandmother's house during a gym class. However, investigations revealed that Layla was not registered for any gym activity, casting doubt on Jennifer's account and raising serious concerns about the care the girls were receiving. Despite multiple reports and signs of distress, the social services team failed to respond adequately to Patricia's and the neighbours' warnings. The system's negligence allowed Layla and Millie to remain in a potentially harmful environment where their safety and well-being were consistently overlooked. On the evening of November 17, 2015, an operator on the emergency line received a harrowing call from a woman named Jennifer, who was clearly distressed and in desperate need of help. She reported that her adoptive daughter, Layla, was struggling to breathe because a piece of chicken had lodged in her throat. For approximately 13 minutes, the operator guided Jennifer through cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR techniques and steps to help clear Layla's airway. However, Jennifer expressed her lack of confidence in performing these maneuvers correctly and feared that she might inadvertently harm the little girl. In her panic, she attempted to remove the obstruction using her fingers and even resorted to a butter knife, but unfortunately Layla could not withstand the ordeal and tragically died shortly after the call ended. When paramedics finally arrived at the Rosenbaum home, they found Layla's lifeless body and despite their best efforts to revive her, it was too late. During their examination, they discovered significant injuries on Layla's body, including bruises on her back, which raised immediate red flags. When the paramedics inquired about Layla's medical history, Jennifer claimed ignorance, stating that she did not know because Layla was adopted. As they took Layla's body to the hospital, the paramedics noted the extensive injuries, which prompted them to alert the social worker and local authorities about the situation. Meanwhile, Layla's sister Millie was also taken to a health centre for examination. Medical staff found multiple bruises in various stages of healing on Millie's hip, head, arm and back, which were consistent with signs of child abuse. Although Millie's injuries were not as severe as Layla's, they nevertheless warranted a deeper investigation into the living conditions of the sisters. As a precaution, Millie was returned to the care of Patricia Lambert, the woman who had previously looked after the girls while the investigation unfolded. On November 18, 2015, just one day after Layla's death, an autopsy was conducted that revealed multiple injuries, including extensive bruising and fractures across Layla's body. Investigators determined that the cause of death was blunt force trauma to her abdominal area rather than an accidental choking incident, which had been initially suggested. In light of these findings, both Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum were arrested, but they were able to post bail almost immediately and return to their home. This development caused immense outrage among Layla and Millie's biological family and the wider community, who felt that justice was not being served. The case also sent shockwaves through the Child and Family Services Division, where an internal investigation led to the termination of the two social workers who had been responsible for monitoring the girls' case. It was revealed that these workers had overlooked multiple critical warning signs that could have prevented the abuse the sisters suffered. While there was no evidence that they had acted with the intent to harm the children, their negligence and failure to comply with specific protocols for cases involving vulnerable children allowed months of abuse to go unchecked. The trial against the Rosenbaums began in July 2019, where they faced a staggering 49 charges, including murder, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and cruelty to children, all stemming from Layla's tragic death and the injuries suffered by Millie during their time in the Rosenbaums' care. Despite the overwhelming evidence against them, both Jennifer and Joseph pleaded not guilty. The defense argued that Jennifer was merely trying to dislodge food from Layla's throat when she inadvertently caused injuries. However, this defense began to crumble as Millie, displaying her innocence and sweetness, provided heart-wrenching testimony about the physical punishments she and Layla had endured at the hands of the Rosenbaums, particularly Jennifer. Her candid account struck a chord with jurors, highlighting the abuse that had taken place. Ultimately, in October 2019, both Jennifer and Joseph were found guilty of the charges against them. Jennifer was sentenced to life in prison plus an additional 40 years, while Joseph received a 50-year sentence with 30 years to be served in prison and the remaining 20 on probation. Following the trial, Jennifer sought to appeal her sentence, arguing that her lawyer had failed to provide adequate defense during the proceedings. Her appeal was heard by the state Supreme Court in March 2023, but was ultimately denied, leaving the initial verdict intact. The tragic circumstances surrounding Layla Daniels' death and the nightmare experienced by her sister Millie generated intense debate about the inadequacies of the child welfare system, particularly regarding the supervision of foster homes and the enforcement of child protection laws. The case exposed the complexities inherent in child welfare systems and how a single failure within these systems can have devastating consequences, depriving vulnerable children of the protection and care they desperately need. The community's response to the case emphasized the urgent need for reforms within the system, aimed at preventing such tragedies in the future and ensuring that children in similar situations receive the safety and care they deserve. In the quaint town of Mold in North Wales, with a population of around 10,000, lived Catherine Gurning, a respected veterinarian. Catherine shared a cosy apartment with her longtime partner, Jane Doyle. Catherine's journey to becoming a veterinarian began in Ireland, where she was born in 1975 into a large farming family. Her father dedicated his life to agriculture, while her mother was a schoolteacher. Summers were spent working on the family farm, where Catherine developed a close bond with animals. This experience was instrumental in her dream to pursue veterinary medicine. Catherine was known for her strong academic skills, which led her to excel in her studies. She attended St. Brandon's School and later continued her education at a community college in Burford, where she stood out as one of the top students. After her early education, she received an invitation to study veterinary medicine at the University of Budapest in Hungary. This opportunity allowed her to fulfill her dream of becoming a veterinarian and broadened her social circle, particularly strengthening her friendship with Jane Doyle, who also came from Ireland. The two became inseparable, studying together, attending student events, and bonding over their shared passion for animal care and their career ambitions. After graduation, Catherine found a position at a veterinary clinic in Mold, where she quickly integrated into the team and became known for her dedication to her work. Her compassionate care for animals and people, combined with her professionalism, earned her admiration and trust among her colleagues and clients. Catherine's natural talent for handling even the most anxious animals, along with her ability to communicate effectively with their owners, made her one of the most sought-after veterinarians in town. Her warm personality and optimism made her well-liked, and her expertise was evident to everyone she worked with. Initially, Catherine and Jane lived in a temporary apartment provided by the clinic, but they soon moved into a shared house in New Brighton, only 5 minutes from Catherine's job. By 2012, Catherine had established herself as a valued member of the veterinary community, gaining respect from her colleagues and recognition for her skills. She was known for her friendly Irish accent and charming demeanour, which attracted attention, though she prioritised her career and maintained a focused dedication to her profession and her relationship with Jane. In October 2012, Jane planned a trip to Ireland to visit her family and asked Catherine to consider joining her. Jane hoped they might eventually return to Ireland to support her ageing parents. Catherine, while supportive, wasn't yet ready to commit to such a significant change, but agreed to think about it. On Friday, October 12, 2012, Catherine finished her workday at 8 p.m. She stopped by a nearby shop where security cameras recorded her entering around 8:06 p.m, dressed in blue jeans, a brown zip-up jacket, and carrying a light brown shoulder bag. She left the store about 30 minutes later, carrying an Astier bag and a pizza box. This was the last known sighting of her. Catherine's absence first raised concern when she missed a scheduled lunch with a colleague on Sunday, October 14th. Her colleague, who had known Catherine for years, found it highly unusual that she neither showed up nor called to cancel. Worry turned to alarm when Jane returned from Ireland later that evening to find Catherine's car missing, the house filled with an unusually strong smell of cleaning agents, and several of Catherine's personal items gone. With no clear sign of Catherine, Jane initially assumed she might have spontaneously left for a weekend trip, hoping she'd return by Monday. However, when Monday arrived with no sign of Catherine, Jane's concern escalated. She notified the veterinary clinic, where Catherine's absence and silence further worried her colleagues. Known for her dedication and reliability, it was entirely out of character for Catherine to go missing without notice. The clinic staff pointed out that she hadn't been reachable since Friday evening, and her absence was causing significant unease among those who knew her. Days passed with no news, and a search for Catherine began. The community rallied in hopes of finding answers, but as days turned into weeks, her disappearance remained shrouded in mystery. Catherine's sudden and inexplicable absence left a void in the lives of her loved ones and a growing sense of worry throughout the town. For those close to her, especially Jane, life would never be the same without answers about what had truly happened to the beloved veterinarian. During this period, some friends and acquaintances received short, cryptic messages from Catherine, which struck everyone as odd and out of character. However, the content of these messages remained unclear, and her colleagues soon grew worried. After multiple failed attempts to reach her, Jane went to the police to report Catherine's disappearance. She recounted the events of the last 24 hours, providing information that quickly ruled her out as a suspect. Jane also notified them about Catherine's car, which had vanished along with her. This vehicle was seen as a crucial piece of evidence, and the police promptly began their search, reaching out to Catherine's family and friends. Catherine's family in Ireland, stunned by the news, flew over to aid in the search. Her parents, sister and brother-in-law were in disbelief, as Catherine was known to be responsible and always informed her loved ones of any plans or changes in her schedule. The lack of contact was deeply troubling, and by October 16th the community was heavily involved in trying to locate her. Media outlets also began sharing details in hopes of finding someone with information. The search of Catherine's apartment revealed a few puzzling clues. Fresh traces indicated that a stranger might have been in her bedroom, and an unusual item was left on her bed, suggesting an unexpected visitor. Jane claimed that Catherine was devoted to their relationship and didn't engage in casual encounters, making these findings all the more baffling. Additionally, Jane noted that she had found the front door open when she returned, a detail that further heightened the suspicion. These clues were documented as part of the investigation, and on October 14th, while attempting to contact Catherine, Jane also reached out to one of their mutual acquaintances, Clive Sharp, who had recently been a point of tension in her and Catherine's life. Clive, a sales consultant living about 150 kilometres from Mold, was a complicated figure in Jane and Catherine's lives. Jane had met him through a dating app, and although their relationship had ended, Clive continued to visit her frequently. His presence often made Catherine uncomfortable, and she would typically leave the house during his visits. Catherine had even expressed her unease about Clive to family members, mentioning her concern over his behaviour. Police found this information notable and decided to take a closer look into Clive's background. A background check on Clive revealed a troubling history that raised red flags. He had spent around 14 years in prison, with his latest conviction related to inappropriate conduct towards women. His criminal record showed incidents dating back to his youth, involving charges of indecent messages and aggressive behaviour. Over time, his actions became more severe, eventually resulting in multiple convictions and long prison sentences. His early offences had escalated, and he was ultimately convicted for a serious offence that led to a significant prison term. Following his release, Clive seemed to rehabilitate, starting a family and remaining out of legal trouble for several years. However, his personal life was marked by struggles. His wife, Gillian, suffered from substance addiction, which led to a tragic end, an event that seemed to impact Clive deeply. In 1994, he once again found himself in legal trouble, convicted for inappropriate behaviour and sentenced to 3 years in prison. After his release, he was again convicted and sentenced to an 8-year term for a serious offence involving a weapon. Despite the severity of his actions, Clive was granted early release after 5 years. Following this, he attempted to rebuild his life, remarrying, but his marriage ended by 2011. A later relationship had also deteriorated, which further underscored the challenges he faced in maintaining stable relationships. Catherine's recent disappearance and Clive's troubled history could not be ignored. As part of their investigation, the police decided to detain Clive for questioning and place him in a specialized psychological program. Experts noted that he displayed certain pathological tendencies, particularly in his relationships, which they documented. Clive, however, denied any involvement in Catherine's disappearance and provided an alibi, claiming he was visiting family over the weekend. His daughter and stepfather supported his statement, describing him as calm and collected during their visit. In the meantime, the police were granted permission to search Clive's car, where they collected DNA samples and other evidence for analysis. The investigators simultaneously gathered additional information on all key individuals involved in the case. Reviewing police databases, they uncovered unsettling facts about Clive's criminal past. Despite his attempts at rehabilitation, he had a long-standing history of behaviour that caused concern among his peers and authorities alike. Law enforcement now had a profile of Clive's troubled past and recurring aggressive behaviour. His early encounters with the law were mostly linked to aggressive outbursts and harassment. However, his criminal behaviour escalated over time, culminating in serious offences and a complex legal history. Each prison term seemed to be followed by a period of calm, only to be interrupted by another incident, pointing to an ongoing pattern of problematic behaviour that had evolved over the years. As the investigation progressed, the authorities closely monitored Clive's behaviour and connections. Although he continued to deny any involvement with Catherine's disappearance, the psychological evaluations raised concerns, noting a tendency towards certain behaviours that had surfaced in his previous relationships. The police, with the aid of forensic evidence and witness statements, remained focused on gathering enough information to confirm or disprove Clive's involvement. In this period, Catherine's friends and family received several short messages that seemed oddly brief and out of character for her. Concerned by the strange messages and lack of contact, her close friends decided to inform the police, with Jane reporting Catherine's disappearance. She provided the police with details about Catherine's car, which was missing along with her, and explained the events of the past 24 hours, removing her from suspicion. Catherine's family in Ireland, devastated, were informed immediately and flew in to assist in the search. Police then searched Catherine's apartment and discovered several unusual findings, traces suggesting someone else's recent presence, an unfamiliar object on the bed, and her front door found open when Jane returned. These discoveries puzzled her friends, since Jane insisted Catherine wasn't seeing anyone else, making the unexplained signs of a visitor even more concerning. Jane then shared recent tensions related to Clive Sharp, her former acquaintance who visited often despite the end of their relationship. Catherine had been uncomfortable with his presence in the home and tried to avoid him leaving the house whenever he visited. Clive, who lived about 150 kilometres away, had a troubling background, including a record with serious crimes. His criminal history revealed various offences, ranging from sending indecent messages to acts of aggression, resulting in several prison terms. The law enforcement team uncovered these records and, despite Clive denying involvement in Catherine's disappearance, obtained a search warrant to examine his car. Initial DNA results matched samples found in Catherine's bedroom, confirming his presence in her house, although he continued denying involvement, insisting on an alibi his family verified. Meanwhile, 2 days after her disappearance, a young couple walking near an abandoned quarry found a burned car approximately 5 kilometers from Catherine's house. Police confirmed it as Catherine's car, showing extensive fire damage but lacking any other evidence or remains. This dismal discovery diminished hope that Catherine would be found safe. Despite Clive's continued denial, the evidence against him mounted. The police intensified the search around the quarry, utilising helicopters, search dogs and divers to search nearby areas and waterways. Then, on January 7th, 2013, officers found bags in the quarry lake containing some of Catherine's belongings and other items confirming her connection to the area. This discovery brought heartbreak to her family, who organised a memorial service attended by over 300 people. On January 14th, 2013, Clive's trial began. He surprised the court by pleading guilty, a decision likely influenced by the overwhelming evidence, including items found in his possession and DNA matches to traces from Catherine's home. His admission expedited the trial and spared Catherine's family a prolonged, grueling process. However, Clive's guilty plea seemed driven by practicality rather than remorse, as he refused to elaborate on what had happened, leaving many details unknown. The prosecution's account of events drawn from the evidence described how Clive entered Catherine's house on October 12, 2012, after observing her routine and confirming Jane's absence. Clive knew about Jane's trip and waited until Catherine was alone. He entered late at night, spending hours in the home. By morning he visited a nearby store, the same one where Catherine was last seen, to buy cleaning supplies and tools, with surveillance footage capturing his purchases. Clive meticulously removed traces of his presence, disposed of Catherine's belongings, and relocated her car to the quarry. To cover his tracks, he set the car on fire before returning home. Later, he sold his own car to avoid suspicion, yet forensic analysis confirmed traces that matched those at Catherine's home. Clive's phone records revealed his location near the quarry and lake during crucial hours, with logs matching his timeline. When questioned, he refused to acknowledge his movements, leaving further details of the crime to speculation. Another woman also came forward, revealing that she had a similar unsettling encounter with Clive. She reported that he had behaved aggressively during their brief acquaintance, leading her to end contact. On the evening in question, he had visited her apartment but acted erratically and left only after she asked him to go. It is believed that from there he headed to Catherine's home. Around midnight, surveillance footage captured his car parked at a hotel across from Catherine's house. After waiting for some time, he left the car and walked toward her house, reportedly waiting until the lights went out inside. Clive then returned to his car for another hour and a half, eventually heading back into Catherine's house around 3 a.m. Knowing Jane was away, he took advantage of the opportunity to gain entry. Despite his guilty plea, Clive provided no further information during the trial. He sat silently, head bowed, as the prosecutor and Catherine's grieving family looked on. Found guilty, the prosecution initially requested a 42-year sentence, which was later reduced to 37 years due to his admission. After the trial, Catherine's sister Emma spoke to the media, describing the profound impact Catherine's disappearance had on everyone who knew her. Catherine had been a devoted veterinarian and a committed member of her community, helping out at the Catholic Church in Buckley, where her friends and colleagues later dedicated a memorial in her honour. Catherine's loss deeply affected Jane, who struggled with guilt over her involvement with Clive. She had been unaware of his dark past, recalling how he had seemed polite and charming when they met, never displaying any red flags. In the aftermath, Jane found it hard to continue her work at the clinic and ultimately moved to northwest England in hopes of a fresh start. Clive remains in prison serving his sentence, but his actions devastated those around him. His mother, unable to bear the truth of his crimes, passed away shortly afterward, and his daughter severed all ties with him, leaving him isolated and estranged. Sabrina Tunick was born on October 27th, 1994, in Cleveland, Guyana, and faced significant challenges from an early age. Her parents, Susan Edwards and Mark Tunick, led an antisocial lifestyle, which led to Sabrina being raised by her paternal grandmother starting at the age of 3. By 4 years old, Sabrina was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, attributed to a malfunction of her nervous system. As she grew older, controlling her impulsive behavior became increasingly difficult, leading to conflicts with peers and aggression that ultimately resulted in her being placed in a shelter run by the Lake County Children's Services Department at age 14. Sabrina spent the next 2 years in the shelter, where she faced various struggles. However, in 2011, at the age of 16, she was adopted by the Neufall family and moved to their suburban home near Cleveland. Lisa Neufall, her adoptive mother, was known for her kind heart and deep love for children. Born on May 2, 1971, in Reynoldsburg, Ohio, Lisa was a social worker dedicated to helping families. After moving to Lake County in 2000 and starting a family with her husband, Kevin Neufall, Lisa eventually opened her own orphanage. Sabrina's arrival in the Neufall family initially marked a positive turning point in her life. As she settled into her new home, she thrived academically, improved her behavior, and began to dream of becoming a model and studying cosmetology. Lisa and Kevin were pleased with her progress, noting her excellent relationships with them and their 2 biological daughters, Megan and Haley. Sabrina and Lisa developed a particularly strong bond, often described as resembling that of sisters. Sabrina frequently expressed admiration for Lisa, who she viewed as a role model. However, this idyllic situation began to deteriorate about 6 months after Sabrina's adoption. She started accusing Lisa of favoritism, claiming that her adoptive mother loved her biological daughters more. Despite the nurturing environment, Sabrina's feelings of neglect grew, leading to emotional instability. While her bond with Lisa faltered, her relationship with Kevin, her stepfather, appeared to deepen in a troubling way. Friends and family began to notice suspicious behaviors, including interactions that seemed more intimate than appropriate. On October 27, 2012, Sabrina turned 18. By law, this meant she had to transition into independent living, but she requested permission from her adoptive parents to stay with them until she finished high school. This was granted, but tensions within the household continued to rise. On November 16, 2012, at around 1 a.m., Sabrina committed an act of unimaginable violence. Armed with a 10-inch kitchen knife, she stealthily entered Lisa's bedroom while her mother slept and began stabbing her repeatedly. Lisa awoke to the attack and screamed for help. Megan, who was just 13 at the time, rushed to the scene upon hearing her mother's cries and quickly called 911, reporting that Sabrina was attacking their mother. When police arrived, they discovered a chaotic scene. Sabrina was found in a state of shock, still holding the knife and exhibiting superficial cuts on her body. Officers instructed her to drop the weapon and comply with their commands, which she did without resistance. Meanwhile, police found Lisa's youngest daughter, Haley, locked in a closet, traumatized by the events unfolding around her. Kevin, who was away on a business trip as a truck driver, received the devastating news of his wife's attack via a call from the police. Upon arriving at the police station the next day, he appeared unusually calm for a man whose wife had just been murdered. This composure alarmed law enforcement officers, who expected a distraught reaction. Kevin picked up his daughters without asking questions, raising suspicions about his emotional state and potential involvement in the incident. Following the incident, Sabrina was held in custody, and her case drew significant media attention. While the investigation continued, Kevin expressed frustration about being denied access to Sabrina for discussions regarding the tragedy. His calm demeanor began to change into anger as he faced the reality of the situation and the potential implications for his family. As the legal proceedings unfolded, the case raised numerous questions about Sabrina's mental health, her relationship with her adoptive family, and the circumstances surrounding the violent attack. Experts examined Sabrina's background, considering her ADHD diagnosis and tumultuous upbringing, which may have contributed to her actions. The news of the brutal crime sent shockwaves through local media, prompting an extensive investigation by the Lake County Police. They determined that the victim, Lisa Neufall, had suffered a staggering 178 stab wounds to her head, neck, torso, and limbs. While investigators quickly identified Sabrina Tunick as the primary suspect, they faced challenges in establishing a clear motive for the crime. Over the next 10 months, detectives worked diligently to piece together the details surrounding the murder. They focused on the suspicious relationship between Sabrina and her adoptive father, Kevin Neufall. During initial interrogations of potential witnesses, it was revealed that Sabrina had confided to a social worker about allowing Kevin to take nude photographs of her in exchange for money. A week prior to the murder, Kevin had contacted the same social worker, expressing that he and Lisa were considering divorce but still wanted to maintain custody of Sabrina. Furthermore, one of Sabrina's friends disclosed that Kevin had asked for help finding a hitman, which raised serious suspicions about his involvement in the murder plot. Investigators also uncovered that shortly after Lisa's death, Kevin had taken out 2 life insurance policies on her, amounting to $800,000, and made numerous purchases with the insurance money, further suggesting premeditation. Initially, Sabrina denied any involvement from Kevin in the murder. However, after spending 9 months in custody and feeling abandoned by him, she agreed to cooperate with investigators in August 2013. She revealed that Kevin had planned Lisa's murder and provided intricate details about their illicit affair, which began in March 2012. According to Sabrina, their mutual attraction intensified when Kevin confided in her about his exhaustion after long truck drives, leading her to offer foot massages. By September, they had become sexual partners. Sabrina claimed that Lisa was completely unaware of their affair, as she and Kevin had taken great care to hide it. Kevin frequently sent Sabrina text messages professing his love for her and expressing his desire to leave Lisa. He promised Sabrina a life of comfort funded by the insurance payout, suggesting that she could replace Lisa as the girl's mother. Although Sabrina initially resisted the idea of killing her adoptive mother, she felt pressured by Kevin, who insisted that divorce was not an option. He repeatedly remarked that a dead Lisa was worth much more than a living one, indicating his intent. On the morning of November 15th, the day before the murder, Kevin drove Sabrina to school and, overwhelmed with emotion, began to cry. He told her that he and Lisa had a terrible fight the night before and that he would consider suicide if Lisa remained alive. Fearing for Kevin's life, Sabrina ultimately resigned herself to the idea of killing Lisa. With this newfound resolve, investigators gathered the evidence and decided to arrest Kevin. On August 9, 2013, the 43-year-old widower was charged with conspiracy to commit aggravated murder and complicity in the crime. Sabrina agreed to testify against him in exchange for the possibility of parole after 30 years. The trial began in May 2014, with prosecutor Patrick Candon asserting that there was no doubt about who had committed the murder. Still, He argued that Kevin had orchestrated the crime, knowing exactly what would happen that morning, and played a critical role in planning Lisa's murder. During the trial, Sabrina Tunick took the stand and openly admitted to her love affair with her adoptive father, Kevin Neufeld. She detailed their plan to commit the crime, asserting that the idea originated with Kevin. She claimed her actions were motivated by love and a desire to prevent him from suffering. Sabrina expressed hope that justice would be served, emphasizing that she was not the only one involved in the crime. The prosecution called several officials involved in the investigation to testify about Sabrina's behavior after the murder. One police officer who met Kevin the day after the crime described him as surprisingly calm. Additionally, Erica Gaither, a colleague of Lisa Neufeld, recalled visiting Kevin's home the day after the murder. She noted his nonchalant demeanor and observed that he showed no emotion at Lisa's funeral. Witnesses from insurance companies testified that Kevin had called them the morning after Lisa's death to inquire about the necessary documents to claim the life insurance policy he had taken out shortly before her murder. The Lake County medical examiner also testified, describing the horrific injuries Lisa sustained. He noted that 2 wounds were fatal, one to the jaw that severed the carotid artery and another to the chest. The extensive number of injuries indicated that Lisa had fought for her life during the attack. Although investigators could not produce copies of text messages between Sabrina and Kevin, they revealed that from November 1st to November 16th, 2012, the two exchanged 1,491 messages and made 78 calls. Kevin's lawyer, Michael Koenig, argued that Sabrina should be held solely responsible for the murder since there was no physical evidence of their affair or any messages indicating Kevin's intent to kill Lisa. He contended that the prosecution's case rested solely on Sabrina's testimony, which was a means for her to reduce her own sentence. Kevin chose not to testify in court. After a lengthy 9.5-hour hearing, the jury found him guilty on all 11 counts related to the murder. On August 6, 2014, Judge Joseph Gibson sentenced him to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 30 years, making him eligible in 2044 at the age of 73. The defense announced plans to appeal the verdict, focusing on mental health evaluations for Sabrina, arguing that her psychological issues compelled her to act independently. Following her testimony, Sabrina faced charges of premeditated murder with aggravating circumstances. Her lawyer, Charles Graves, indicated that she would plead guilty. On September 29, 2014, at 19 years old, Sabrina was sentenced to life imprisonment, also with the possibility of parole after 30 years, granting her eligibility in 2042 when she turns 47. Upon hearing the verdict, Sabrina broke down in tears. The judge clarified that her opportunity for parole was a result of her cooperation with the investigation, although he acknowledged that Kevin had manipulated her. The judge ordered that Lisa's 2 daughters receive $6 million in compensation. Now 28, Sabrina is serving her sentence at the Dayton Correctional Institution, Ohio State Prison for Women, which was established in 1987.